Hello, and welcome along to the stream this evening. So, the thought process behind tonight's stream is to continue working on GitReleaseManager. So, I have been working on various aspects of GitReleaseManager for a few weeks now, but we're having a bit of fun doing it, so I'm going to keep going with it just now. And the intention of tonight's stream is to try and implement some integration tests. So as of right now, when the CI builds run for GitReleaseManager, we are exercising the code, we are running the unit tests, but ultimately we don't really know that the thing works. Right, we're not actually exercising it against an actual GitHub repository to actually create a release and see if things happen. Now, one of the things that Kim added to the build script recently was to dog food GitReleaseManager. So every time the build runs, it will use the latest version of GitReleaseManager to perform the GitReleaseManager functions within the actual build. So what I mean by that is when we come round to creating a release for GitReleaseManager itself, then we will be using the latest built version of GitReleaseManager, but that only happens kind of once in a blue moon. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to exercise the latest version of GitReleaseManager on a much more regular cycle, right? Now, the way that I thought about doing that is if we walk over to GitHub here and we look at Get13 fake repository, then on any sort of given, when I'm testing GitReleaseManager, I will use this fake repository to create this release, right? And I'll go in here, I'll edit it, I'll discard it, I'll run it again to make sure it's all working, yada, 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 right? Now, what I want to do is I want to do that as part of every CI build. So every time we do a commit, I want to walk up to this repository, I want to create a draft release, I maybe want to export it, to do a sanity check against the generated release notes to see if they are what they're expected. And now that we have a discard operation in GitReleaseManager, that means we can actually test that the discard operation works. So we're not going to be able to test every single piece of GitReleaseManager, but we can test at least some of it, right? And speaking of Kim, he's actually just joined the chat room here. So hello, Kim. One thing I did want to point out is since the last stream, which was on last Monday, because Friday I had a very important lunch date with my youngest daughter, so I wasn't on the stream on Friday. But on the previous one, since then, Kim's gone a little bit nuts, and he's put in quite a lot of work on GitReleaseManager, so thanks to him for that. But since the last stream, we had a PR submitted from Tomas. Tomas made some changes to the async logic that we use. We've just had two raiders. Two raiders have joined from Freestyle Coder. Welcome along to the stream this evening, folks from Freestyle Coder. Appreciate you joining. We're just talking about how we're going to start working on doing some work on GitReleaseManager. So Tomas, last week's stream, sent in a quite big hefty PR for changing all of the async operations within GitReleaseManager to make them, let's just say, better. And then Kim also did a fairly hefty PR to re-enable style cop and FX cop across the project, so got rid of all the warnings and errors that we had as part of the build. Kim did that. And then there was another monumental PR, which was, I think it touched every single file in the repository, but that was basically to rationalize all the line endings, editor config settings across the entire repository. So all that's been done, and we're in a much better position for it. And the final thing that Kim added was the ability, maybe I'll just bring this one up because this one's pretty cool. So if we go to github.com up here and we go to Git Tools and we look at Git Release Manager, then what Kim added was the ability to, as you're closing off a release, or more specifically, as you're closing off a milestone with Git Release Manager, one of the things that was asked for was the ability to add an update comment on issues that had been closed within that milestone. So what Kim added is this this comment, which is something you can configure through Git Release Manager, is that it will add a comment onto every issue that was closed within the milestone that you just released. So it's basically an update for anyone that's interested in or is following along on a specific issue. Git Release Manager will now go ahead, it won't do it by default, but if you turn it on, it will add this kind of nice comment that basically says, this issue that is tagging it on was released in this version, and this is where you can get it from. And it's from your Git Release Manager bot, which is pretty cool. And as Kim's mentioning in the chat room there, you have to explicitly enable that within your Git Release Manager.yaml file. So it's not on by default. And Kim added some fairly clever logic, which actually takes into account the GitHub API limits that come into play when you start hitting the GitHub API. So it'll actually back off if it's getting that near that API limit when it's closing off those issues. So if you've or commenting on those issues, so if you've got a release that had, say, 50 issues on it, then if you tried to do 50 all at once, then you would hit the GitHub API limit. So it's got a back off strategy that it will wait a while if it gets near that limit before it attempts to do it again. So that's all pretty cool. So the thing that I'm going to be looking at tonight is, I probably shouldn't have closed that. Let's go back here. That's my Synergy setup coming into play again. So let's go to Git Tools, Git Release Manager. A disclaimer from Kim in the chat room there is that he's never actually hit that rate limit, so he doesn't actually know whether his back off strategy works. I read the code, and I from what I could see, it looks sound. So let's cross that bridge when we're getting. How many have we got in this release upcoming? So if we look at where are we? This milestone for Git Release Manager itself might be reasonably big. 11, so we're probably going to have at least 20 or so issues. So it'll be interesting to see when we close this one, because I'm going to enable that feature for Git Release Manager itself, because I want that thing on here. So the thing that I was hoping to look at tonight was this concept of integration tests. So the first thing I want to do for that, though, is I want to do a little bit of refactoring of the project. So right now, if we look at... Oh, really? Your evaluation... Really? I'm signed in with my MSDN account. Why has that not got... That's ever so slightly annoying. And also it's Community Edition. So what? I'm so confused. We need to refresh the credit. Well, okay, let's do that. I don't understand why though. Okay, hold on a sec. Let me grab a password. That's very strange. So the question is, which one? Okay, build.net. I'm going to say .NET Foundation one, which is going to be this one. Copy. Let's see what that does. Huh. Hold on. I might have to go. I'm going to go off stream and I'll come back in a second. 2 seconds. Okay, I've just put in my credentials, and I'm hoping that it's now going to let me in. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Now it's still there. Okay. Right. What I was saying before I had to do that was I wanted to refactor the project slightly. So right now, if we look at this test project, then this test project includes two files that are really integration tests. It's got this class here that is specifically for sort of what I'm wanting to do, which is to actually exercise the GitReleaseManager against an actual repository. So it requires username and passwords in order to function. And now it's included within what is essentially the unit test project. And I don't normally do that. So I think that was a holdover from where this project started. So what I want to do, first of all, it's kind of related to what I'm wanting to do. So I'm going to create a new project here. So I'm going to say create a new project. And I'm going to call it, maybe we should open up the other one first so that I've got something to base it on. So this here is a Netcore 3 app. So let's make it the same. So I'm going to say add new project. And we're going to make it a 1 VB, 1 C#. Let's see what it is. Let's go with that. And we'll call it Git. It's really annoying. I just realised I never said hello to Patrick in the chat room. Hello, Patrick. Integration tests. Well, I don't know. But I was going to copy and paste from the other one. But okay, let's have a look and see what. I always like learning something new. Do I have the NUnit template installed? Let's find out. I'm going to say I probably don't. Oh, for goodness sake. NUnit test project? Is that the one? Or C#? Is that the one you're talking about, Kim? Let's do that then, shall we? I think that came along because I do have... Oh, I'm trying to think what I've got installed now. Git release manager dot integration tests. So let's create that, and then let's have a look at the project file that it created, and we can make sure that it's set up the same. So let's put this one over here, and we'll add some. We'll look at that. Let's try to do 3.1. Let's keep it consistent though. So let's keep it on 3.0 just now. Let's remove that extra one there. I'm going to say generate assembly info. Let's keep them the same. I'll give that a title. And this is going to be integration tests. And then let's give it a description. We'll call it the integration test project for GitReleaseManager. And what were we doing here? Put that one in too. And what was that? That was We'll probably need that too. That's the reference to the core project. Let's put both of these in. KD. Microsoft. This. Right, we're probably going to need some other references in as well, but we'll leave that in just now. Reload all. So I'll come to that, Kim. So we'll come to that. Because at the minute, no. But let's come to it. Now, who added that custom dictionary into there? Did I add that in? Oh, that's coming from your new directory props file, isn't it? Where does that live again? Is that where that thing's coming from? Look at that. I was like, how did that get in there already? But I realise now how that got in, so that's good to know. So it includes the style cop. Cool, good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to take that out of there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that integration tests and I'm going to move that over here. It could probably be typically I add the solution.info just to everything. I mean, it's not strictly needed with the integration and tests and the test projects, but I tend to add it in just so that there's some consistency again. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the integration tests from here because we've just moved it over here. And let's clean out some of this again. And what I want to do now is I'm going to change the namespace probably on here to be integration tests, so it's in the right place. Integration tests, there we go. Right, so now if I build this, I'm sort of expecting things to break, but let's see what happens. Didn't break. Yeah, no, this one. It did break, it just didn't pop up. So let's put this in here. Clipboard helper and client builder. Those were things that I included here. Now, is this the only place it's used? 0 references. Okay, cool. So that means we can pick this one up and put it into here, because that's the place that it's used. And client builder has currently got no references because it's the only place it's used, so it's there. So let's put these two things in. Let's remove them from that project because we moved them over here. So again, we will update the namespace to be in the right project now. So integration tests, and this one wants to be integration tests. No idea what happened there. I'm fairly sure I did Control C, and then here I'm going to do no. I'm just going to type it. Integration tests. Control Shift B. Now this text copy is a NuGet package, I think. So where was that coming from? That was coming from text copy. So that's the only place. I'm going to remove it from this project. Don't need it in there anymore. And we'll walk over to this one and we can put it in. Now let's see if that starts working. Good. And let's do another build here. Where does helper come from? I see where helper is. Helper.credentials. So is that? That's the only place that this thing's used as well. So let's put this one back up over here. And let's make this live in the integration tests. Okay. Good. Okay, build succeeded. Okay, right. So the last thing, kind of need to test this now. So I want to test the integration test that I've got here. Now, the way that it's kind of built just now is it's kind of broken, right? Now let me explain why it's broken. So in the refactoring that we did, we've moved away from this, or rather, we've created a specific GitHub provider, and the idea there is that we will have a GitLab provider or a Azure DevOps provider. And now, originally, the code that was in this integration test here, it took as an input a GitHub client. Now, that's a GitHub client that came directly from AutoKit. Now, the way that it worked is that it used this in-memory credential store thing that comes from AutoKit. Now, it has the capability to pull the credentials from somewhere, and that somewhere was this username and password or token that came from a environment variable. Now, all that's great, but because we moved away from passing in a GitHub client, an AutoKit GitHub client into here, what I've now got is kind of a hard-coded username, password, and token. Now, obviously, that's broken because that's just text that I've put in there to try and give some sort of indication of what should happen, right? Now, that's just not going to work. So what I'm going to need to do instead is I'm going to need to create a username and password and token for the purposes of the integration test. Now, so that things line up, I'm going to make this, which one was it? The helper. I'm going to use these. I might change these because this is not in the style that I typically create environment variables with. So you could just grab that. Yep, that were. Yes, that Kim's suggestion there in the chat room is to grab the environment variables and skip the test if they don't exist. Would we want the test to fail though? If I guess we could mark them as skipped. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a quick look over on my CI and see what I typically call the environment variables, and I'm going to match them in the code base so that they're consistent, and then build out from there. So if we have a look over here, I'm fairly sure I know what it is, but I just want a sanity check. Interesting, it's not there. But if I go over here and I do underscore profile. Why does that not work? There we go. What I normally call it is, yeah. So let's do this. This is a username. So I'm going to call this gettools underscore GitHub username is the one I normally use. And we'll go for gettools underscore GitHub token. And then depending on how we're authenticating, now that brings into question something else that Kim and I was discussing, which was whether or not we wanted to deprecate the usage of a password. So GitHub has now started deprecating the usage of username and password for authenticating to the GitHub API. Going forward, it's going to be just a token that you can use, but for now, GitReleaseManager supports both username and password or a token. But going into the next release, we will be obsoleting that, and then in the release after that, we will remove the ability to use a password. But for now, we'll leave this as is. And let's have a quick check to see if I've got this set up. Git tools, GitHub, username. Oh, we've got something in there. So that looks promising. So those are the environment variables we're going to use. So now in the test, if we go over here, let's go in and configure. And we will go up here and we will say private string username, private string password, and we'll go private string, I'm going to come back and fix that, token. I'm going to get there in the end, private string token. So here, where we pass in the username, this we will change to be username. This we will change. If my bad typing made it into the spec, it would be amazing. It would help. It would help my inability to type. No end. So let's do this. And let's do this. And let's do this. Right. And then we want to go ahead and grab those. So in the same way that the helper over here was grabbing them, we can grab them from here. I'll go ahead and copy that, and we're going to say username equals that. We'll say that password equals that, and we'll say that token equals token. Alright. Now we could do some sense checking, but I want to just try it and see if that works. So in theory, if I were to walk up to here and go run tests, what happens? Build succeeded. Where's my test explorer? Test explorer's here. It's running. And it's doing something. Okay, that seemed to work. Didn't get any failures. Kind of would have liked to have seen it fail. So let's see if we can break it. So if we go back to the test itself, which is here, and let's go ahead and see if we can break it. Let's run those tests again. It's kind of red-green refactor, so it would be good to see it break to then know that we fixed it. Good. This one is working because it's kind of a standalone test that is just testing the setup of AutoKit itself. So it's running that client builder build using the username and passwords that I didn't change. So this looks like it's working. So I'm happy with that refactoring. And the fact that we've removed those integration tests from the actual unit tests means that we don't need to skip them anymore. So, yeah, one more, just to make sure that putting that back makes it work. And let's see where we get to. That should all go green again. Beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to say that's enough for now. Like I say, there's probably some additional refactoring that could be done to do some sanity checks on whether those are populated and whether to run the tests or not. But a failing test is a good indication that something's broken. So there's kind of ways of looking at both sides of that. Kim, do you have any objections to me putting that directly into the repository, or would you prefer to see that as a pull request? because I'm going to make it associated with this issue, which is for overall integration tests, which is just the refactoring of the projects. Assert.inconclusive when not running the tests. You want me to put that in, don't you? Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, then I'm going to say if string.is null or empty username and string.is null or empty password and string.is null or empty token, then we assert dot inconclusive. Is that a method? I bet it is. Else. Like that. Copy. Else. And if I run that, that shouldn't change anything. Oh, it does. Okay, let's put that in as well. Let's do that then. So in here we could say unable to locate credentials for accessing GitHub API. Copy. Copy. And paste. And if I walk up to here and do this, this, and this, and I try and run this again, then I'm able to locate credentials. So to make this a slightly, if that and that, or you haven't given me the token. If that, or, and that, or that, then that should really give the same results. Good. But if we do this, then that should work. That logic sounds wrong. Did I do it wrong? If that's null and that's null, switch. I always get this wrong the first time. Yeah, okay. This is why we write tests, and this is why we execute the code multiple times. Okay. Okay. Better. Okay. but I don't think I have a token, so I don't think I can test that. But let's just see if that logic works as well. I expect this to fail. Expect that to fail. Let's have a look. Yeah. Okay, so one last sanity check before we commit it. Should all pass. Okay, good. So I feel a little bit happier about that because I've broken those tests up into their own kind of project now. So I'm happier about that. So all of this, that would have been just the addition of the new project. We move clientbuilder.cs to a new location. So both of those files moved. So I'm okay with that. This file moved. This file moved. And this file moved. All of those, well, they're related to the ones above. That would have just been, that's the creation of the new project. That was the removal of the reference. And that was the new file getting moved. So I'm happy with all of those. And I'm going to say that this is related to 140. So here, gh-140, and we're going to say refactor projects. Moved integration tests from unit test project into its own project. This provides better clarity about what is a unit test and what requires outside setup, i.e. connection to GitHub. Okay, I'm happy with that. So let's do a git push upstream. And let's do a git push to the origin as well. Right. So let's go back to a point that Kim made earlier in the chat, which was, well, now that we've got this unit test project, this integration test project, why not do some of the work that I want to do, which is the testing or exercising of the GitReleaseManager in this project here? Because then we would have full clarity in terms of what unit tests have failed, which ones have passed, all that sort of stuff, and that we can collect that together into code coverage metrics and all that sort of stuff. So my thought process there is that would allow us to test the GitReleaseManager.exe, and that's absolutely something that would be worthwhile. But if we go one step further and test the exercising of GitReleaseManager.exe from within the cake aliases that we're using within a cake script, then we're kind of covering both bases. So it's either one of two things that have to happen. One is that we could run the integration tests from within this project exercising GitReleaseManager.exe, and then we could replicate the same tests directly in the cake script for exercising the aliases directly. So my thought process was, in the initial release or the initial implementation, was to do it within cake script. So that was my thoughts. What are your thoughts, Kim, on this? Because I'm curious as to what you think. So I'm going to let you ponder that, and while you ponder that, I am going to have a look over here at another project that does integration tests with Cake, just so we can see how all of this comes together. And also while we're here, let's run a build to make sure that we didn't break anything. Okay. So given that we get a bigger bang for our buck by exercising the aliases through the Cake integration test, I think I'm going to start there. And then if we need to, we can go back and we can implement similar tests within the test harness of NUnit. So let's just run this build, make sure that it works. And then let's have a look at modifying our cake.recipe build to include execution of some integration tests. Let's let this build finish. So the build, just got a notification that the AppVer build failed. That's not good. I must have broken something. ci.appver.com. What did I break? GitReleaseManager. I had a feeling it was going to be DukeFinder. I had a feeling. Fairly sure I know what the issue is as well. This is why I should have built it locally first. So that here, this is a lesson for everyone out there. One of the key benefits of Cake is that you can run the build locally before you push to your CI system. I just chose not to do it. So this has already been fixed. This particular issue has already been fixed. But because I moved the file, it's no longer being excluded. So if we have a look here and see what's going on, I suspect that if we scroll down here, then there would have been an exclude for the tests.cs file. But now that we've created a integration tests one, we're going to need to put integration tests in there as well. So now let's run the build locally again before we commit to our CI system. And we will do that. This is why I usually have a push git hook. It forces me to run the Cake script. Interesting. Do you have that somewhere that I could have a look at, Kim? Is that on? Have you got that in a repo somewhere? Because that could be helpful. Because it would force me, as you say, to run the build. Not right now. Yeah, that'd be good if you could. So we're running the build locally. We're going to make sure it works. And if it works, we'll do another commit into the repository. DukeFinder passed. So DukeFinder passed. So we got past that one at least. So let's see if this gets through the rest of it. Okay, I'm on. Okay. We are very close. I think. Good. Okay. Creating NuGet packages, creating chocolate packages. .NET Core Pack. That's for the tool. Beautiful. Okay. So now let's go back to here and say that was for, what was the issue number? Issue number was 140. Add dupe finder exclusion. Creation of new project resulted in dupe finder finding duplicates in, oh really? Creation of new project resulted in dupe finder finding duplicates. Test projects. Test projects aren't typically, Synergy's getting annoying tonight, aren't typically included in dupe finder analysis. So happy to remove it. Okay. Let's go ahead and check that in. And let's push that up. Okay. Push upstream. Let's have a look at what Kim's put in the chat room there as well, which is his Git hooks. I'm going to copy that URL to the clipboard and I'm going to paste that into here. So we've got a pre-push and a pre-commit. So what is all this doing? So help me out here, Kim. So this is a, I'm going to show my naivete here with regard to hooks. Will this hook only work when you're using Git Bash, or will this work from any shell that is exercising Git? And how does one add this hook? Because I'm familiar with the concept of the hook and what it's doing, but I don't actually know how I would add this. Hello, Andrew. Is that Andrew as in Andrew Nesbitt that's just joined the chat room here? Or is that another Andrew? So Kim's saying it'll work on any shell, which is good. So how does one add that? You move those scripts into your Git hooks directory for the repository you wish to enable them on. Oh, so that's the other thing. So Octobox support checking in. I love it. I love it. So we're going off on a tangent here then. So are there any known issues, Andrew? Or should everything be working as normal? So this pre-push is doing lots of stuff. Git stash, git clean. So I'm confused here. Where's this actually running cake? Or where's it actually running the build? Oh, there we go. I see it now. So this is assuming. So, Andrew, yes and no. I sometimes don't hit the sync button, and I just hit the Octobox icon in the top left, which has normally always just kind of done the refresh for me. but now when I explicitly hit the sync button, it works. So has something changed in that area? If it is, that's just me. My muscle memory needs to change to going from the Octobox icon to the sync button, because it has just indeed updated to my most recent notifications. Interesting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna study this later. I'm gonna star this gist, and I'm gonna come back to that one later. Got you. Okay, and that's totally fine then. As long as if that's what it is, that makes perfect sense to me. I'm happy with that. I don't know why I got into the habit of clicking the top left button rather than the button that clearly says sync. But I have, so I'm going to click the sync button from now on then. I'm happy with that. Oh, it'll be back soon. Okay, cool. Goes without saying, I appreciate your ongoing phenomenal support with Octobox. It very much is appreciated. So thank you for that. Where do we get to? Top left just refreshes it. Got you. So top left refreshes the page, but the sync button actually reaches out and gets new notifications. Okay. Makes sense. What was I? Oh, I remember what I was going to do. Right. So, this repository, or this build, is now going to exercise the built-in support within cake.recipe to exercise a set of integration tests. Now, I'm going to borrow from someone who's built some of that already. So if I go over here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder in here called tests. Server move was to save money as we've lost 50. Actually, that sucks. It really does. Oh, no. You are more than welcome, Andrew. Don't worry about that. Server moves. So is that? Do you think that's as a result of the new GitHub notification stuff, or do you think that's something else? Because for those that don't, I should bring this up while we're here, right? So for those that don't know, this is Octobox.io. Octobox is amazing, right? So Octobox is all about collating all of your notifications into one place, but doing it in such a way that is far more manageable than what the built-in GitHub notifications, or maybe more specifically, the previous GitHub notifications system was. So there's the concept of starring things so you don't forget about them. There's the concept of archiving them so that things don't stay in your inbox and you kind of get this overloaded weight of lots of stuff that you have to deal with. There's different filters that you can apply for collecting things in different groups. You can see all the labels, all that sort of stuff you can do on private repositories. It's very good at what it does. I've used this for a long time now. And it just works. So earlier today, I had sent a Twitter notification to the Octobox official account because they'd been doing some changes last night, and I'd mentioned that on my display it was saying that it hadn't refreshed for 23 hours. But what Andrew's been saying in this chat just now is that I typically click this button up here, this Octobox icon up here, but as a result of the change, I'm going to click this little sync button here as opposed to that one up there. But if you don't use Octobox and you're looking for a mechanism to make your notifications easier, I would thoroughly recommend it. I can honestly say that I haven't looked at the new offerings from GitHub as to what it's now doing. But I see, this to me is still, I don't think I get as much from this as I do from this. So maybe let's just bring it up. So let's just see. So this to me is the fact that I can see my labels here, I can see the author of it. I get better indications of what the actual notification is. Is it me that's been mentioned? There's various things in here that make it far easier to manage these notifications. I love the fact that I can click on this to drill down a specific one, and then I can take an action based on that. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you've dropped 50% of your paying customers in the last month. That really sucks. If it makes you feel like I'm not going anywhere, that's probably not a big. That's not a big contribution, I know, but the previous behavior speculatively sync notifications for any user who may have new notifications, but that requires 100 times background encryption. Yeah, absolutely, I can imagine. But no, in terms of my usage, the way that I use it, like I say, I would normally just have gone up to there and it could have done the sync for me. But I'm happy that this doesn't make any difference in my workflow really. So I'm happy to. Oh, let's have a look down there. So there's a new beta. Oh, let's have a look. Scared. Oh, I maybe need to be signed up to it, do I? Maybe that's why. I thought I was on something for it, but maybe not. But anyway, my current workflow. This is I have this as a default tab. It opens as soon as I open Chrome. This for me, this isn't going anywhere in the near future. So, if it makes you feel any better, Andrew, I'll still be a paying customer, a happy paying customer, and look forward to continuing to use it. So, but that's Octobox, everyone. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it before. There is, I should mention Patrick, or is Patrick in the chat? Patrick's not in the chat room anymore. So I won't mention his one. He's got a application called Ghostly that is a thick client. So if you prefer your notifications to be local in your box as opposed to on a web browser, there is another mechanism to do that. Because I cross over between Mac and Windows, for me having a thick client version of it doesn't make much sense. I prefer the web-based one. So that's me. Right. Anyway, so I like I say, I appreciate you dropping in, Andrew. I really do. The support for Octobox is second to only. There's only they don't really count anymore from an online service perspective. Your support is amazing. I was going to say it's beaten only by MyGet, but that's not true anymore because the two people who made MyGet amazing don't work for MyGet anymore, which is unfortunate because their support isn't as good as it was anymore, unfortunately. But Octobox support is amazing. Anyway, right, so I was going to go these integration tests. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to create a new folder within here called tests. Is that what I'm going to call it? That's this one. So yeah, I'm going to create a new folder called tests. And then I'm going to create a new folder within here called integration. I can't type integration. Oh, let's have a look. You put a link in my chat room there, so I'm gonna take a look. It's limited beta, so I must have to sign up to something. What's it showing here? There's unread. Absolutely. Thank you very much. I do appreciate you stopping by. So it has got the concept of filters, which is similar to what Octobox does. Triage, respond, and clear out your notifications inbox. That's from there. Yeah, you see, that's very similar to what you can do in Octobox. I'm going to continue to keep paying. Let's leave it at that. I'm a happy customer. Right, so in this integration folder, I'm going to create a new file called tests.cake, right? And then in here, I'm going to do some stuff. Let's do a var target equals argument. That's a little bit unnecessary. Let's do this anyway. I'm just copying from another project. Let's call this target, and then we'll say run all tests. Beautiful. And then further down, we will have a task called run all tests. And then we'll have a run target called target. Okay. So then in our recipe.cake file, we are going to want to set a parameter up here called should run integration tests true, and then integration test script path is tests integration, got an extra E in there, tests dot cake, got an extra N on there. Okay, so what we're doing here within our recipe.cake file is we're telling cake.recipe that we want to run a set of integration tests, and then we're giving a path to where those tests belong or live. So at the minute there's nothing in there, but it should, in theory, it should run those, start exercising those tests. So let's just make sure and see if that works. And see where we get to. Really need to fix that big yellow text there. That's a job for a different day. So, if this works, we should then be in a position to add some integration tests that actually exercise the the latest built version of GitReleaseManager. And the way we'll do that is by specifying a tools path on the alias that we use. And then we'll see if that works. Building. Once we know that this builds and it actually does what we're wanting to do, we'll run it in a slightly different way so that we don't have to wait for the build each time. Because at the minute we're not actually changing the build of GitReleaseManager, but it's just the actual surrounding infrastructure. So once we know it's all building happily, we'll just run that one target directly. I think I'll be able to do that. Let's see. I just saw something on Twitter that says that Apple has pulled the app that turns your iPhone into an iPod. I don't know why they would have pulled it. I don't know if you'd seen that, but it was fond memories of an iPod with a click wheel. Apple pulled the app because it copied the iPod's design. Oh dear. That's unfortunate. Never mind. Looking at the CI build, it seems that the integration tests isn't ran. Oh, I'll need to add those. So those environment variables don't exist on AppVeyor. So I need to go back and add those, absolutely. Why did that not? What have I not done? Should run integration tests is true, and integration test script is there. Why is that not running? I'm confused as to why that's not running. Cake.recipe. Should run integration tests. Testing.cake. Should. Oh, do I have to run it explicitly? That might make sense. In which case, if that is the case, does this not? Is it an explicit target? I thought it at least attempted it. No. Okay then. So that would mean that we do have to do this. So we'd have to go into here and we'd have to do run integration test. That's not how I remember this working. But that's clearly what it is. So I may not remember it being that way, but it looks very much like it is. Okay. So what does it take a dependency on? Run. I see. Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Back on the same page now. So if I go and have a look at this one, and it's... Might have to speak to Pascal about how he's using it, because at the minute it's not clear from the repository that I'm copying from when he actually runs that test. But let's see if this works, and if it does, we will start stubbing it out. So it's 9:10, and we've got a little bit of time left, so we should be able to get to a point where we're at least testing the creation of a release. If we can get to that point, I'll be happy. I'd be happier if we get to a point where we create it and we discard it, and then we can build from there. So what Kim was talking about in the chat room there was that if we look at the CI build while that's building locally, and we look, I'm going to say that there, can we search for inconclusive? No, what was the output that we said? Credentials? Credentials? No. Integration tests? So it's building it. Should maybe add that task as a dependency. Maybe. I always come back to this issue. So hold on, I'm not sure if that. So when you said that those tests aren't being run, then by default, I think the filter for finding those tests is that it contains .tests.dll. So this integration test DLL isn't going to be run at all. We would need to modify the filter for finding those to include those, and then we would need to add the environment variable so they can actually be executed. But what you're talking about there is whether this is dependent on should be changed to be CI1. It runs the integration test project though. Okay. So it knows about it. Yeah, you're right. So there's a single milestone 3. But if that's the, should it not show us the output? Which I'll have to go back and check to see whether we'd see that here. Or the means that there's the start. Oh, I see, okay. I'm not familiar with enough with that output to know that that was true. Okay. In which case, all I'll need to do is add the environment variables. What? I've got a CIF. Dang it. If we say exclusive here, so that we don't run the build, we'll just run the tests. Then it shouldn't run the dependency, so this should be far quicker. So we should get to that error point far quicker, and then we can start to iterate on that. Yeah. Do we have an issue for that one? If not, it would be good to have an issue for that, so that we can kind of track that, because that would be good. So I missed a semicolon somewhere here. Go back a second. Yeah. So I kind of missed doing this because it is dependent on create release. And put a semicolon there, and then up here we'll have another task that is create release, and then there we'll do a does. In fact, let's do this task action create release. Save me some typing. So in here we want to do stuff, so let's just do information stuff. Let's do. Let's remove some of this. Seriously. Stuff. I'm going to get there in the end. This keyboard is not going to beat me down tonight. Okay. So if we do here and run this again. Then we should at least see it starting to be exercised. Run integration tests. Invalid expression. What have I done? I've deleted the lambda, haven't I? What does? Better. I think my delete key got in the way. Or rather, my delete key plus the additional delete keys that were sent along for the ride. Okay. Right. So we're getting somewhere now. Right. So what we want to do next, let's just go up to the documentation, is we want to attempt API Git release manager aliases. So in here, one of these will be to create a release. Manager, add assets, close, 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 create. So we want to run, let's say this one. So let's borrow this. And we in here, we are going to say, delete that, and we're going to run GitReleaseManager create. Thank you for creating that, Ishikin. I appreciate it. So, we are going to want to do some stuff. We're going to want to do some stuff. Up here, let's do a setup task, which takes a context. We could go one step further and we could give it a we could do a build data here. So if we go back to here and say here, and let's go in here and here, sorry, create a new file called builddata.cake, public class build data, and then here I'm going to put a public string username, GitHub username, get public string GitHub password, get public GitHub token, And then oh, okay, good to know. Public build data IK context if not context, if context equals null, throw new argument exception name of context. I'm doing a little bit of setup here, but basically what I wanted to do is I'm wanting to get the environment variables. So if we go and have a look at how that's done elsewhere, then we can have a look in here and in here, and not that one, this one in here, and then we can look at credentials. Then in Cakeland we can just do here this. I'm just going to borrow this. Then over here we can say a GitHub username is equal to, now in here we're just going to give it an explicit name, and we said that it was going to be git tools GitHub username, and we can say GitHub password equals context dot git tools GitHub password, and then GitHub token make this git tools GitHub token. Okay, so then in our setup we can then say that this is then going to be a build data. Seriously. I'm going to need to fix this thing at some point. And then this is going to be a return new build data from the context. We do that. And then this becomes build data, and it takes a, no, not there, sorry. It's on the does here, and then that comes in with data, and then in here, good. Let's do that as well then. So this is going to be data dot GitHub token. So let's change this around slightly. So we'll say public string GitHub owner. Let's put this all in one place. And then public string GitHub repository. Seriously? Any idea how annoying that is? So in here we will say GitHub owner the minute this is sort of hard. Get 13, and then the GitHub repository is equal to the fake repository. Okay, so then in here we can say data.github owner, and then in here we can say data.github repository, and then we could put that into there too, because we kind of know what the milestone is that we want, and it'll be consistent across. So let's call it GRM milestone. And has a get on it. So the GRM milestone is going to be, has it got a V on it? One that I normally do. Yep. So let's put it in as V 0.1.2. So in my test, that's then going to be data.grm milestone. Perfect. Pre-release, I typically don't set that, I don't think. Assets, we're not going to do assets at the minute. Target commit-ish. I'm happy to leave that as a master at the minute. That I don't worry about just now. That I don't worry about just now. So I've given it a token, an owner, a repository, and we've given it some settings. So let's do this to make this slightly easier to read. So I'm going to put this in here, this in here, this in here, and we will tab over these things slightly, and then tab over that. So in theory, if all of that, if I haven't done anything silly, that should create a release on GitHub on my fake repository using that information. The one thing that we haven't done is specified the tools path. So if we go back over to our documentation, then we'll see that this settings class derives from tool settings, and every tool setting has a toolpath property that you can specify. So I should be able to go up to my settings class and say toolpath. Now what I want to do is I want to set that to be equal to, the one that's just been built. Sorry, what are you saying there, Kim? Let me do that again. Will you be testing the closing of milestones as well? So sorry if you all haven't mentioned it, no. My first pass at this was, so let's write this down. So I had intended on doing, let's do this. I had intended on doing create release. Let's do this. Export release, which I would download the release notes that had just been generated and then do an assertion against something that we expect it to be. Then I was going to do a discard release, right? And here I would have then done a add asset to release. So we create the release, we add an asset, we export it, and then we discard it. It was kind of where I was imagining going. So I don't think it will be, Kim. So, well, let's answer your first question first. At the minute, I wasn't planning on exercising the close milestone, mainly because we don't have a open milestone. Maybe we should have one, but at the minute, I'd envision doing these ones. So let's just put these in so that seriously. Task, cake action, add asset to release, task with action, export release, task, discard release. That's kind of where I was planning on starting. So, and exercising those in order so that if something fails, we get to a broken state and then we have to manually go and fix it. But this is what I would tend to do as part of my manual testing of GitReleaseManager. Now, regarding the toolpath, so within cake.recipe, we did something here which was on the current context is we registered a new file which was the GitReleaseManager executable. Now, the way that the integration tests work, so if we go to github.com and look at cake.contrib, cake.recipe, and we look at the testing.cake file, let's have a look. Then what we're doing here, integration tests, is we're actually spawning a new cake execution. And the context of the current cake execution is not passed down into the current one. So no, I do not, even though over here we're doing this work, I think we will have to do something similar in our integration test to get it to work. Because I'm almost convinced that that's not going to fly. Now, we can verify that by not setting the toolpath, and I expect that it will. What will it do just now? It will run using the Git. I see. No, GitReleaseManager isn't currently. It hasn't been required. So GitReleaseManager is not there at the minute. No, they're two separate executions. So we might be able to modify this to include the passing of additional information down, but it's spawning a new cake.exe, so it's a completely separate process. So no, they're not. The contexts aren't shared between the two at the minute. But I expect that this will break because it won't be able to find GitReleaseManager. Unless we're doing something clever and using the... No, I don't think we are. We're not that clever yet. I expect that this will fail. But let's find out. Assuming we don't have any C# compilation errors, that is. Oh, I see. It was too good to be true. It was too good to be true. So what we need to do here... What time is it? Oh, got a little bit. So we need to do a load of build data.cake because we've never added it. Perfect. Let's see what else there was. Build data, build data, build data. They're all the same. Okay. But we should, assuming this does fail, we should be able to do something very similar to what we've done in the other cake script to include the registering of GitReleaseManager tool to come from the built directory. Did I not save that? Build data.cake. Oh, hold on. It's not in the same folder. Yes. Let's try that again. They were meant to be in the same folder. I don't know why I put them in different places. Parameter name. Because I don't have the token variable. So, what does that alias take? Let's see how that's built up. So, there's a create that takes a token. So is the other one just... There must be another one that is specifically for string. It's this one. Username, user, password, GitReleaseManager, create. Okay, so let's go back to that one and say the minute, we should probably have both. We should probably exercise both of those so that we're testing them both out. But in my current setup here, I don't have the token environment variable, which I could obviously go and fix, but that would mean going off stream and setting up an environment variable, blah blah blah. Let's just use the username and password just now. Let's see what this does. Oh. So it succeeded, and that means it created a release. So if we go over here and we have a look at my fake repository, then look at that. It's there. So let's do this. Oh, we can't test that one. Oh, we've got a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing going on here now. I can't actually discard it because we don't have a cake alias yet to exercise the discard command. So that means... But we haven't stubbed it out. So no, it didn't discard it because at the minute it doesn't do anything because we don't have a discard alias within cake. Now I might be able to fake it. We might have to fake it just now. Well, see. No, hold on. Oh, I'm even more confused now. Hold on. No, I'm very confused right now. Where is it finding GitReleaseManager? It shouldn't have been able to create the release. Unless it is sharing the context, but how is it? how is it able to do that? That was my exact thought that I just had. But then the question becomes, is it enough to pass it? Oh, hold on. Well, no, because I saw that. Where was that getting passed down? If we go over here, then it's setting the verbosity to be the context.log, the current verbosity. So if we do this then, and say verbosity diagnostic. Oh, seriously. I'm so bored. I'm so over it. I'm so over it. Oh, I should quickly go and delete that thing. Oh no, I did delete it, didn't I? Or no, I didn't. Let's do it now before it does it, hopefully. Oh, I've got it installed. I've got it installed via Chocolatey. So, Choco, uninstall, GitReleaseManager. .portable. So that explains that part. So now if I run GRM, it won't find it. And now if I run this will fail. Probably didn't need the diagnostic verbosity this time round. But let's run it anyway. Did it create it again? I bet it would have. So let's discard that one more time, even though it's not going to get to this point. And now it said an error, yada yada yada. Lots of compilation errors. Could not locate executable. So that's better. So now over here, we need to do something very similar to what was done here. Let's borrow that and go into the tests. And then let's borrow this context. And we'll borrow this context. So what we need to know is what this is. But I'm just going to hard code that just now, which is going to be temp publish applications. No, it won't be there either. No, it won't be there either. I had a thought that it might be there for a second, but no, it won't be. So I'm just going to hard code this just now to be artifact/temp/published applications, right? Then we register it. Everybody's happy, I think. So let's give this a spin. see what this does. This should work. Should work. Until proven otherwise. Absolutely. So we should see it output the registration of what have I done wrong? The name context. Where did I miss a context? Referee. Context. Try that again. Tear down. Sequence contains no elements. Build artifacts. Oh, it's not in there, is it? Boom. So we're down here. So we need to go up 1, up 2, then into build artifacts. So I can, let's get this right. So we are down in here. So we need to go up 1, 2, and then down. So we should be able to go dot, 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 there. Let's see what that does. This time. Just in time for me finishing. This should hopefully work. Registering built. Oh, look at that. Oh, I see. Now we've got the ASCII text with the version number and its output that. So now if we go back over here and we refresh this, then it's there. Beautiful. Right. So let me have a little think about what I can do here. So if we go into build artifacts, temp, published applications, GitReleaseManager CLI, what does it have? Oh, and then it should be there. So GitReleaseManager, GitReleaseManager, exe, discard is there. So what did we decide that discard needed? Milestone, username, password. I think we might be able to hijack it. So let's do this. Let's do this. Discard that. So when I say I'm going to hijack it, what I mean is what do I want to do? So the suggestion that Kim made is a perfectly viable one, and that is to use start process to exercise the GitReleaseManager.exe directly. But there is a mechanism that we can borrow, which is not necessarily recommended, but it has proven to be useful in the past. So let me look something up so that I don't have to remember how to do it. And I'm going to walk up to a repository that's on my other screen over here. And I'm going to look at where I've done this before. And that is going to be in here. And that's going to be, nope, not in there. It's going to be in here. It's going to be in here. I'm going to search in here for argument customization. And that's not going to be there because I've already overwritten it. But if we go in here and look at the strong name of the history. This one? No. This one? No, I'm looking at the wrong one. Where's the thing that I want to do? Wasn't there. It was. I might not be able to find this before we need to disappear for the evening. But might have been here. Let me look at the history of this file. It's this one. What we're doing was, let's change this up to do var settings is equal to this. Let's cut this up here a second. And then in here, we're going to put in the settings there. And then, actually, let's do this. Then we're going to do settings dot argument customization. And then in here, we're going to say that args is a new process argument builder dot append I wonder. I mean, this will work, but we could also do it slightly differently. Because in here, I'm essentially going to do Let's not make it a new one. Let's do args.replace create with discard. So basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to abuse the existing alias. So we already have an alias for creating a release. Kim's saying, I have a feeling that won't work. Usually arguments from setting classes are created after. Yes, but this is a delegate. This is the argument customization happens after all of the settings have been gathered from the alias, right? So effectively what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to allow the GitReleaseManager create alias to run, set all of its settings up, because the settings between the create alias and the discard alias are essentially exactly the same, right? So what I'm asking it to do here then is to say, don't run the create alias, but run the discard alias. Oh, I see. Okay. But the new process argument builder, that definitely does work, because I've done that. I'm literally copying that from somewhere where I abused it before. So it does work. That creation of the new process argument builder does work. But in this scenario, I'm let's see what this does. I'm still missing something here. I'm missing the milestone, because we're not setting that anymore. But let's do that. Settings dot is it milestone? Yes. Let's put this on here. This is going to be data dot. I'll need to put the data into there as well. GRM milestone. Then this needs a build data. Put data on there. So if we do that and we go back to here, did I create it already? Nope. Okay. So now if we go back to here, let's run it with diagnostic this time round. And then let's see what happens. This is going to be the last thing that I do tonight, because I need to go inside. I may submit this as a draft PR for getting some feedback, and then we can build on this. It's compiling. It's compiling our integration test script. I see. I broke something. See, I wondered if that was going to be the case. Process argument. What does it have then? GitHub.com/cake build. Seriously. Cake build cake. Process argument. It's getting so old. Argument builder. What can we do? You can append to things. Let's see what this has got. Count, clear, append. Ah, that's annoying. Oh. Might be able to do something there. I'm just wondering whether we first render what it's got, replace it, and then use from string to create a new one. So essentially, we would do args dot new process argument builder dot from string args dot render dot replace. That'll be a method. Close that. No, will that work? Am I just making stuff up now? I might be making stuff up. Oh no, that would be not that. That would be new process argument builder from string. I wouldn't need the new then, because that will return me. So that's process argument builder from string. Render out the current arguments, replace it with create, and stick it on there. What's the chances? Okay, I'm going to run that. I'm going to try running that and see what it does. Don't try this at home, people. Shouldn't ever want to do this. Shouldn't ever need to do this. We should just update the alias in Cake to have the discard alias available. But in the absence of that, we'll abuse an existing one that already figured out where the grm.exe is so that it can run it. Yeah. It's compiled it. Oh, what did that do? Okay. Let's see what that did. So I'm not expecting to see a release here then. Oh my goodness. Right, don't try this at home. But we have an integration test. We have an integration test that I'm showing my token there. Oh, I should go and change my token because I've just put that out on a stream. Because it's not redacted, because we're exercising the alias in a slightly different way. So, yeah, I'm going to go and change that token just now because that's out there in the wild. Profile settings quickly. Developer settings. Personal access tokens. I think I'm just going to be on the safe side and get rid of them all because I'll just regenerate them. Okay. So that token that I was happily showing everyone in the whole wide world is that token doesn't exist anymore. So that's not going to be able to, and nobody's going to be able to use that. So that's good. And I'll have to create myself a new one. But for now, this crude workaround works. So we've been able to bypass the lack of discard alias in Cake by using the create alias and then bypassing it. So let's do to do this can be replaced when discard alias is added to Cake. So let's do this. Let's delete all these. I'm going to go ahead and create this as a. Now let's switch to a branch. So let's do a git checkout things. We're doing checkout feature gh-140. I just find that. It's so annoying. Right. Let's go over here. Considering this, only if we enable diagnostic verbosity, right? It wouldn't be shown otherwise. And environment variables aren't hydrated on a pull request, so it wouldn't run them there. Oh. You're spoiling my fun here, Kim. No, you're right. We enable that in a master build. But at the minute, we're not running this at all. This is only running locally at the minute because the run integration test isn't configured in the YAML file. So in order to run this at all, we would need to put, and the environment variables don't exist yet on AppVer, so for that reason. But at the minute, it's still running continuous integration. Continuous integration doesn't run the integration test. That's only for running locally. So I think we're okay. Basically, the reason I want to push this is because I want to get it off of this test machine so that I can have it on another machine for continuing to work on it. So I'm going to put this up as a work in progress PR on the caveat that we're not actually running this yet. Because by the time that we actually want to start running this, we'll have, it's maybe a little bit of chicken and the egg a little bit, but once we get this release out, we want to immediately create the aliases. I mean, well, we could preemptively create the aliases in Cake. And I am going to do a draft PR this time, yes. So let's do one. It was 140. I didn't just make that number up. Add integration test, yes. Initial stab tests. Exercised. The create and discard commands in GRM. Okay. So let's have a quick look. Sanity check. Added those two. That's a brand new file that's got all the data in it. That is the test that we just created. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and get push origin. That's going to fail because I need to do this instead. And then if we go over here and we look here. Come on. Oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work because I need to authenticate because I've just deleted all my tokens. Live streaming's a pain sometimes, right? It's currently trying to use my persisted token to push it off of this machine, and it should prompt. Oh, it has prompted me. Look, it's there. It was hiding. So let's do this. And let's go over here and try and get my password, which is here. That's going to want a two-factor auth thing, so let me just drop off stream just a second. Okay, I'm back. And I go back over here. I've now got a new token just been created. Okay, so that, if I go over here, and let's scroll down to here initially. Oh, it's got a button now. So, I should probably fill out some of this. Related issue. You know what, I'm going to fill in that later, because it's time to go to bed. I'm going to say create a draft PR. Right, there we go. I'll fill in that tomorrow. But for now, we've got to start. So we've got two aliases being exercised. I need to talk to you about this, Kim. This is the last thing, and then I'm going to go. I noticed that the normalization that you did, it seemed to add tabs into our .cake file. Can we have spaces rather than tabs? I'm not sure how they snuck in, but the .cake file has tabs in it, and I'm a kind of a spaces kind of a guy. Because I noticed, I can't remember what I was looking at, but yeah, I noticed. Oh, you see, I copied and pasted from somewhere, and I put tabs in there as well. It would be good if we could rationalize that and figure out why tabs stuck in there, and what we need to do to make tabs be used and enforced. That would be good to know. So that's a job for a different day, though. But I just thought I'd mention it while I see it there. But we're close. We have we're exercising two aliases. We want to do an export of the generated release notes to do a comparison against something, and then what we need to do is add assets, test adding assets to the just generated release, make sure that works, and then if we can get to a point where we can close a milestone, we might want to open that milestone as another alias, and then if all of that works, we ship it. But for now, that's all I've got. So I am going to say adios for now. Thank you for listening to me prattle on about this. And hopefully we'll see you on Friday, where we'll do a quick lunchtime stream to kind of maybe build on this a little bit more. And from there, I don't know where we'll go, because we're getting close to Christmas at that point. So I have to figure out when I'm doing streams across this Christmas period. But for now, that's all I have. So thank you very much for attending, and we shall see you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.